So there are things, as runners, we know that we should do, and we do, like putting our shoes on before we go out for a run. Common sense stuff. Then there's the things we know we shouldn't do, and so we don't, like running naked or sprinting a half marathon. Again, pretty common sense, but in that middle area are the things that we should do, but we probably don't. And that's what I want to talk about. 10 things that runners should do, but probably don't. Use this as a tick list to feel smug, and I'll do you a deal. If there are things on this list that you don't do yet, you have to consider subscribing to the channel to learn more about yourself and your running. So are you ready?
Now this is definitely one of my weaknesses and something I know I need to do better at, and that is warm-up and drills. See, the thing is, we're running 10k every day in April, or at least trying to, and there's no way I'm going to get away with it without doing a proper warm-up, which is raising my pulse, and then some drills. And I'm going to tell you why those drills are important. The way I see it, a good warm-up and drills does a few things. It gets the pulse raised first, but then it takes you through the range of movement, which is why we're doing dynamic stretches, and then it promotes good technique, which is why we're doing drills. And it just gets the body ready to go out running, and when your legs are stiff like our legs are now, then all of these three things are absolutely vital when it comes to going on any run, even though we're just doing 5 kilometers. So you need to do a warm-up, you need to do drills. It promotes good technique, and that can only be good in the long run when it comes to your long run.
Okay, who's ever stood at that start line feeling as fresh as a daisy, all of the training in the bank? You have an idea of your pacing in your head, your plan. The siren goes and boom, so long plan, you feel way better than expected, so you're gonna go with it. It doesn't matter how you've been training, you feel amazing at this pace. Heart rate seems low, effort seems manageable. There's only one problem. The longer the distance you're running, the less likely you are to be able to get away with this. Mary learnt the hard way at Seville Marathon, training for months at 5 minutes per kilometre, then feeling great on race day and going with 4:45s for her first half of the marathon. And once you realise, usually by about 30 kilometres or mile 20, it's too late. White foam accumulates at the side of the mouth, legs suddenly start running through treacle, you must never trust a fart, and you curse yourself that you fell into that classic trap. But it's not all negative, it's fuel for the fire, and some experience needs to be lived, not told. So next time, what you should do is have a plan and follow that plan, even if you feel great, because races like a half marathon or marathon really only start in the last quarter.
I've made a lot of videos about sleep and the benefits of it in my time as a YouTuber, but definitely one to touch on. If you're a runner, if you want to get the best out of yourself and you do not prioritize your sleep, which is ultimately really you're prioritizing your health, then you need to check that immediately, because there is nothing that you're going to be able to do in terms of quality of life, in terms of training, without the base of sleep underneath it. Now, I'm not saying you have to get 8 hours a night, because everybody has a different sleep need, but usually the sweet spot is between 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and that will leave you fully recovered, ready to go again. And you're not going to get the best out of yourself if you undersell yourself on probably the most important part of life, which is recovering. I saw someone wrote the other day that if doctors could prescribe a miracle cure for most illnesses for free, they would prescribe sleep. And for me, sleep underpins everything that is good about my training and my life. So if you don't sleep enough, you need to start thinking about how you're going to get those extra hours in.
One thing many of us runners should definitely do, but probably don't, is take the headphones out, stop listening to the podcast, stop listening to the music, and instead of tuning out, tune in. Here's the thing. So many athletes I coach are very reliant, I might say over-reliant, on listening to something while they run. But when I started taking away my headphones, when I started not listening to music, a massive transformation happened. And that transformation was that I started to tune into my body and what it was feeling like, what it was doing. I actually started to be able to feel what paces I was running because of what happened to my heart rate, my breathing rate. I started really starting to think and know about myself a lot more. I found it so beneficial. I think when you're listening to podcasts or when you're listening to music, your mind tends to wander, and sometimes that's what you need on a run. I'm not saying never listen to music or podcasts again, but I'm saying give yourself the opportunity to learn about your body in absolutely the best way possible, and that's by really tuning in and focusing on it when you're out on the run and having that be the only thing you focus on. I'm not saying stop listening to it altogether, but give yourself the opportunity to learn more about yourself while you're out on your runs, and you'll thank yourself when it comes to when you're racing. So you should ditch the music or podcast from time to time.
We as runners and humans should focus on our weaknesses, but being honest, how often does that really happen? When we like the feeling of easy long runs, how often do we dip into the pain cave on the track to add speed? When we know that tempo sessions can be uncomfortable, will we skip them in favour of something more tolerable? The truth is, we might not even know what our weaknesses are, but a good rule of thumb might be that it's the part of running that you're avoiding. For me, it's definitely strength and conditioning, and Mary previously tried to avoid tempo sessions, but the key is to identify the weakness and lean into it and make it your strength. Not only will it benefit your body and running, but your mind is going to become sharper as a result. You're saying to yourself, you're okay with being uncomfortable, and that will bleed over into the everyday, in work, in relationships, and everything else. So don't look at weaknesses as something to avoid. Approach them like an obstacle that you can remove from the path, rather than going around and avoiding them altogether.
And here's one thing I think maybe we should all be better at doing, myself included, and that is knowing when we should be running and knowing when we should be backing away from running. It's really hard to get right. It probably takes a number of years. But you know, you've all had those situations where you've come home from work, you're tired, you really don't feel it, you want to sit down, and so maybe in the past sometimes you've bailed on a run, but those are the runs that you should be making when you have no real excuse other than just a little bit of tiredness. And then on the flip side of that are the runs when maybe you're carrying a bit of an injury, something that you need to look after, or maybe you're ill and it's not just a head cold, it's something that's gone into the chest, or you know, an illness that you really would do better not training than training. It would actually set you back to train. And it's these little things that we need to learn year in, year out, so that we get it right and we don't push ourselves when we should be holding back, and we don't hold back when we should be pushing ourselves. We're trying to stay in this for life, right? So there's no harm in pulling back when we need to, but learning when to push, equally as important, something we could all get better at, I'm sure.
Come on, you knew it was coming, right? If you don't do strength and conditioning by now, then you need to rethink your approach. And I don't even necessarily mean it in order to benefit your running. I mean, it will. But more importantly, it's about longevity, about investing in your physical pension. All studies, all evidence point to a higher quality of life for a lot longer when strength and conditioning is part of your routine. And I'm not talking about lifting weights. Of course you can, but I'm talking about resistance training in general. Anything from bodyweight work, resistance bands, yoga, Pilates, whatever it is. The fact you do it at all will increase your quality of life. Fact. There's no disputing it. I look at it as making my 90-year-old self proud that I did it, so that I can still do it when I'm at that age. So we talk about this a lot, but if you haven't found a way to make this a part of your life yet, then you need to. Make your 90-year-old self proud and active.
Alright, let's talk fueling, because something I think that us runners should do better but probably don't is understand when and how to fuel for the right runs. And I'm not saying fuel for every run, because I don't fuel for anything under an hour, but when we get over an hour, the reasons that I use fuel, and it could be taking gels, but I know some people don't like them, but whatever you use to fuel your runs, the reason I think it's a really important thing to do is because it trains your body, it trains your gut to get used to taking on fuel for when you really need it, like a race. And it also makes sure that the quality of your session does not dip, because when you get tired, then your running technique patterns start breaking down, and that's when injuries start to creep in. So I fuel because I don't want to get injured, and I fuel because I want to have a good race day. And when you come to race day, I really don't think you're going to get away with not fueling at a half marathon or marathon if you really want to go to the top end. If you're happy just completing, if you're happy just staying in zone 2, different story altogether. But if you want to get the best out of yourself on race day, then I really don't think that you're going to be able to do that without fueling on longer races. And it's as simple as that for me.
Now this is a kind of two-pronged approach, and it's something that's taken me a lot of years to come to terms with actually and get right in my head. And it's the fact that if you're out on a really nice run, then you absolutely should greet and say hello to every runner that's out there doing the same thing. But the second prong of that is you should not expect to be greeted back in reply. It doesn't always work that way. See, it's an amazing feeling when you're out and you greet that other runner, they greet you back, you have that kind of shared moment of joy and you go on your way. That's a lovely feeling. It's one of the really good reasons we do this. But we have to face the realization that not everybody goes out running for the same reasons as us. And also, not all of our runs are for the same reason personally. So sometimes we're out for the pure joy, enjoying the run, feeling great, greeting everyone. But on other days, we might be processing hard things that have happened in the day. We might be trying to shift a bad mood or feelings of depression. There really is no one reason for running. But we have to appreciate not everyone out is running for the same reason as us. And when they don't greet us, it doesn't matter. We're doing the thing we want to do by greeting everyone. And everyone else is on their own journey. If they greet you back, brilliant. If they don't, they're on their own journey and they've got to do their own thing. Ultimately, the way I look at it is that we've done our side of the deal. We've been the people that we want to be, and then we let everybody else get on with their own thing, and that's the joy of life. Right, Matt?
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep this one light-hearted, because there is one thing that you definitely should do, but probably don't, and that is when you come back from a race, don't expect the photos to show you in a good light as an amazing runner. They're probably 90% gonna be awful, and it's okay. I've had experiences where I've come from a race and I've been absolutely buzzing from a performance, and I'm like, okay, let's look at the race photos. Definitely gonna make me look like a faster runner. And we have a in-joke within our group of running friends here that I have like the worst race face that you can have. I've come to terms with it. If I can pick one good photo out of each race, I'm probably winning. But if you're getting out there and you're getting after it and you're really pushing yourself, don't expect the race photos to be all like, sometimes they will be, most of the time they won't be, and it's okay. It means you've been pushing yourself hard. So come on, if I caught you out on a couple of these, then consider subscribing to the channel, but never a hard sell. I'd have to consider subscribing to my own channel because I don't do all 10 of those all of the time. Hands up, just being honest. But also, if you liked the video, then you're definitely going to like this one, which is 10 things that runners should know, but probably don't. And I think there might be a few other little things in there that might be able to help you on your running journey. As always, thanks for watching. We really appreciate every person that interacts with us, and we'll see you next Sunday.